Claire. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hey, Natalie, thanks for having me.
I'm excited to chat because you have a really interesting journey. And I didn't realize this until I was emailing you, but you said you're not really running much anymore. But I know you have a past of running a lot. And I just wanted
Yep.
to talk about kind of like your running journey. And I know that that'll span the entirety of this podcast. But can you just talk to me about a little bit about like where your running journey started, how you got started, what motivated
hmm
you?
Yeah, so I really actually started running at 14. My dad was into it. He was never competitive. He did it for exercise. So he ran 3 miles every other day and around the neighborhood, and that was just his exercise. And I was not interested in doing it because he did it, but he did an outward bound course that I wanted to do. So it's like an 2 week adventure kind of course. And so he told me in order to do that, I needed to run because they make everybody do like a half marathon. And so that summer when I was 14, I had my Top Gun soundtrack on my Walkman and I trained by myself for this half marathon. And then when it got time to do it, I not only beat everybody, all the 14-year-olds, but I beat all the boys. And so I was like, huh, I might be good at this. But then, high school and all sorts of things. I did join the track team and got last place in my first and only meet. And so I'm like, nope, this is not for me. And I didn't find running again until my 20s. I was going through a breakup and I was like, well, maybe I should run. So I ran a half marathon again and then got back together with the boy, ended up marrying him, and quit running. And so I didn't run again until my mid 30s when I was like, okay, well, my high school reunion is coming up. So I need to get in shape. And I know running works. So I am going to do that. And I ran for about a year and hated every step. I was like, this sucks. I hate running, but it's working. But then I got to the reunion and I looked good. And I was like, wait a second, what do I do with all this fitness? I can't quit now. And I decided to do that same half marathon that I did in my 20s. And I ended up doing better at however old I was, 36 or something like that, than I did at 26. So I'm like, huh, maybe I should keep going with this. And I saw that a friend from high school was running Boston. And I was like, well, if she's running Boston, I can run Boston. And no, you can't just run Boston. You have to actually qualify for that. And so, long story short, I started running marathons, ended up running Boston, fell in love with marathoning and training and the whole science of it, and just went way, way deep into the rabbit hole. Ended up becoming a coach myself. And by the time I ran my last marathon, so my first marathon was 4 hours and 2 minutes. And then my last marathon was 2 hours and 58 minutes. So I had a really, really big progression and just really fell in love with the sport, the science of it, and how you can get from really just being a normal, average mom to being a really exceptional recreational runner. And now that is what I do today.
That is so amazing. And I have so many things in there resonating with me. One, I went to Boston University for college and I was not a runner at the time, but Marathon Monday was like such a fun thing. We would go out and watch these runners, and I had no idea. These were, like kind of competitive runners. And still to
Yeah.
this day, I have not run Boston. I have not qualified for Boston. I don't even try to qualify for Boston, but it's just so I love like that entire story is so inspiring. And I guess I mean, how long was that from the time you started running marathons to the time you really got much quicker?
It was really about 5 years, a 5 year span from when I started, maybe about 6 years, but from end to end, marathon to marathon was about 5 years. I ran 9 marathons in 5 years.
Interesting, because I think people
hmm
think that it happens overnight. And I see this so much in the
No.
nutrition world too, is that okay, I ran one marathon here, and then a year later I ran another one, and it was, almost an hour faster.
Yeah. I mean, some people maybe do that, but they probably have some latent talents, that are coming out. But no, I chipped away at it. I ran a fall marathon and a spring marathon every year and just got better and better. And to be clear, when I started, I had no idea that I would be any good at it. I was just like, oh, this is just interesting. And how do you do this? Because people ask me today, so isn't running just one foot in front of the other? And I'm like, well, it's a lot more than that, you
I
know?
know, I know. And it is interesting how some people find the love for it, and then some people truly just hate it and will never love it. I have a friend
Yeah.
who always tells me she wants to run. I quote unquote ran a 5K together because she was asking me for advice. And I said, maybe sign up for a race and then I'll give you a goal to go towards and I'll do it with you and we can walk whatever you want. And as soon as we got there, she was like, I hate this. I don't want to do this. Let's just walk. And like she keeps telling me she wants to run. I'm like, I don't think you actually do want to run, which is totally okay. You don't
Yeah.
have to. So
Yeah.
not everyone finds that bug within them.
Well, the bug can be developed. I think running's an acquired taste for a lot of people. Like I said, I started and I didn't really want to do it. I didn't like it. But it's once your fitness gets to a certain level where running isn't so painful, you can actually find the joy in it. But then you just want to go faster and make it painful again. So,
Yes, yes.
you just get faster. Running doesn't get easier.
I know, we're all masochists, but and
Yeah.
then also, of course, your brand is the Planted Runner. So
Hmm.
you're vegan, and how did that come
Yes.
before running, or how does that coincide with the running?
It came just slightly before I got into marathoning. So about 6 months to a year before I mean, it's such a cliche story. I watched Forks Over Knives, the documentary, and I'm just like, yep, I'm all in after that. I was sort of a flexitarian before that. So no red meat, no pork, and I had dairy, but meat was not a huge part of my diet. So meat was really easy to just let go of. The cheese took a second, but
Mhm.
it really was kind of an all in. Once I, was convinced of it, I just was like, yep. And I really haven't looked back. So that was 2012. So I've been a vegan since then.
Yeah, that's actually pretty much similar to my journey. I think it was. Oh my God, I don't remember what documentary it was now, but it was a while back and it was just seeing kind of like the factory farming and all of that. And
Yeah.
I was the same. Like I didn't love meat anyway, so it was not hard to give up. And it was just from there, never looked back. And I can't imagine
Mhm.
ever eating it again. I don't think I will. But
No, no.
how does that, what challenges did you find being a vegan runner, if any? Maybe not.
Well, so since I really did it together, it was not like oh, I switched to plant-based eating and then got faster. No, I was doing them both at the same time. So the thing that I always say is everybody's vegan while they're running. Nobody's eating, well, some of the ultra runners maybe are eating hamburgers running down the street. No one's eating a steak and then or a steak burrito and then going for a run. So everybody really is eating carbohydrates before they run, or at least they should be. And so it's not actually that hard to be a vegan runner or plant-based runner. It's just, obviously being any kind of athlete, whether you're plant-based or omnivore, you have to learn the basics of nutrition to know how to fuel yourself right. And that's across the board, no matter what kind of diet you're eating. You need to know what, if you're trying to be an athlete that for performance, or you're just trying to be an all-around healthy person for longevity, you should learn the basics of nutrition. So I think the challenge is mostly social. I don't think the challenge is what to eat or what not to eat. That's something that you should learn no matter what kind of diet you're on.
Yeah, I think it's actually become much more standard in only
Hmm.
the past few years because plant-based has become such a big trend. So, and also it
Yeah.
depends on where you live. Obviously, I live in New York City. It's very easy to find vegan options,
Yeah.
but I think one of the things that I see a lot of runners struggle with when they transition to plant-based is that plant-based foods have less calories. And if you're doing things like
Hmm.
you're running marathons and you think you're going to eat kind of the similar amount of food as when you had a burger and maybe that was 700 calories, it's not the same. So I see a lot of kind of like under fueling. And then
100%.
of course, protein is such a hot topic now. And I feel like I'm always saying most people get enough protein, but I'm talking about people who eat meat. So
Right.
I think the plant-based community still struggles with that. And especially runners, just because of the amount of long distance runners, the amount of fuel you really need to take in. So that's like the main thing that I see. But yeah, exactly what you're talking about when it comes to carbohydrates and pre-run fueling, I feel like is pretty simple for most people to do. It's more so like after the run, what am
Yeah.
I doing now?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, pre-run, most people are eating plant-based. Most people are having toast, banana, peanut butter. Most people are having oatmeal, blueberries, nuts. That kind of thing is pretty standard across the board. But yes, after the run, you do need to think more about what you're eating. And if you're eating some big giant salad with tons of fiber and chickpeas, and you're going to fill up on 300 or 400 calories, when if you just burned 3 times that, you probably need to think about your protein and you need to think about how much you're eating. And I have a daughter that runs cross country and she's 95 pounds soaking wet, and she needs to eat a lot more just to stay stable, and I don't think a lot of adult runners, especially women who have grown up in diet culture and running to be skinny and all that, they have a hard time, and myself included, I definitely did too, have a hard time being like, I actually need to eat more, not less. That's like something we have to reprogram our brains for.
100%. Yeah. Sports nutrition is so different than regular nutrition. Even things
Yes.
like sports drinks where we grow up learning that those are bad for us, but
Right.
this is different. So, and that's what I always try to emphasize to people is take all of that nutrition knowledge you think you have and throw it out the window. It is very different when you add in a sport and then when you add in being plant-based on that sport.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like, yeah. So a lot of people are plant-based because of the nutrition side of it, and they want unprocessed foods and they don't want low sugar and they want low salt. And if you go low sugar and low salt and you're trying to be an endurance runner, you're going to run into some problems pretty quickly.
100%. I think people, actually, I don't, not enough people connect the dots, and that's why I'm here.
Yes. Yes.
So you kind of did this when you were, I hate saying quote unquote older because I'm
Yeah.
41, turning 42 this year, but that's in the sport, we're considered older. So
Right.
were there any challenges to that, or how did you even think about it as you were doing it? Like, how do I get fitter and stronger as I'm losing muscle mass because I'm aging, or was it not even a thought in your mind?
Well, in the late, and so I was mid to late 30s when I started, and my last race I was 42. So no, I didn't really have to think about it at all, except that, that I was age graded and where I fit and how I compared against other people. And now as a coach, like 35, 40, that's prime time marathon season. So no, I don't think you have to think about aging at all if when you're in your 30s. I think it's more about your training age. So let's say that you were an elite runner or sub-elite runner in your 20s. Are you going to be slower at 40? Of course you are. But who are those people? That's like 0.001% of the population. Most people are like me and you, and they're just average, normal people who found running later in life. And you absolutely can get faster with better training, proper nutrition, sleep, low stress, all that stuff for 10 years, 15 years. I have people that start running at 60 and they're faster at 70. So when I say you can get faster with age, 100% you absolutely can, with the exception of people who were already really well trained at their biological peak. So if you were never highly trained and a highly trained athlete, and you're just a regular person who wants to get better at running, your age really doesn't matter much until you start getting really older, 60s, 70s. Absolutely, you're going to slow down in everything, but that doesn't mean that you can't advance in your running, not just speed, but you can gain strength, you can gain endurance. So there's so many things that we are actually not limited in, that we have this sense, oh, I'm 40 years old. I'm getting old. Well, no, 40 years old, you're still super young. I'm 49 by the way now. So
You
so
look amazing.
and I am getting in the best shape of my life. I really really am. Not on the running side, but there's still so much that you can do when you are untrained and moving to a higher level.
So that actually gets into kind of what I wanted to talk about with you, which is I started running when I was 30. I was actually
Mhm.
29 and
Mhm.
I was turning 30. My birthday's in December, so it's always the end of the year, like a time for reflection. And I had always exercised, but I wanted to kind of achieve this goal. So I put my name in the lottery for the New York City Half Marathon, which was in March of the next year. And I got
Mhm.
in, and then I basically trained in a few months and I ran it, and I caught the bug and just loved running and continued. But I never was fast or, I didn't even know what I was doing. I've been running
Sure.
for a while and I had two kids along the way, and I've just kind of been like, trying to continue running. I like it. Never really set time goals. But now that my kids, they're 2 and 4, so they're still young, but at least I don't have the babies at
Right.
home. I'm like, I want to be faster. So
Yeah.
what do I do? I feel like, and that's what the question I'm sure so many people who come to you have is that
Mhm.
I, like you said, age doesn't matter as much. What are the steps that people can take to become faster, even if they are
Mhm.
aging?
Yeah. So with endurance sports, specifically endurance running, what you need to do to be faster is actually run slower most of the time. So you want the majority of your training at a slow aerobic pace. And what that means is slow enough that you could have a conversation almost as easily as we're having this conversation now. It should feel almost as easy as walking. You should be able to argue with your podcast or sing along with your music. And that means that your body is taking in enough oxygen to power your muscles for a really long time. So, running more is usually the first step, and that could be frequency. So, running more days, or it can mean running a little bit longer. But you do want to there's obviously a cap on both of those, but I would say the first lever to pull is frequency. So if you're running 3 days a week, could you bump that up to 4 days a week? So just doing that, and I'm not even talking about running faster, just running slower more often will get your body more used to running. And it's also going to stimulate your metabolism one more day a week. So doing that, running for 30 minutes 4 days a week is going to be better than running once a week for 2 hours, right? It's going to be easier as far as from a risk perspective of getting injured. You're going to, again, stimulate your metabolism 4 days instead of once. So you want to start there. And once you have a nice rhythm of running, you're running 4 days a week, something like that. Then you're going to want to incorporate some higher intensity stuff. So the very first step would be something called strides. So that is 30 seconds of running almost as fast as you can, and then stopping, getting your breath for 2 minutes and doing it again. So four strides at the end of an easy run, just doing that takes, less than 10 minutes is going to absolutely make you a faster runner. So I would say get that under your belt for a while and then start incorporating some speed work. So with endurance running, there's going to be different levels of speed work. We're going to do some stamina stuff, we're going to do some higher intensity, shorter stuff, but all of it would be in service of making you faster at higher speeds so that when you drop down to something you can sustain for the half marathon or the marathon, it's going to feel a lot easier. So there's lots of kind of nuance in how you get faster, but what you want to do is find a comprehensive plan. So it's like you're building on what you're doing each week. So if you are a marathoner and you've run a bunch of marathoners and you're kind at marathons and you're kind of stuck at this same spot, it's probably because you're always running marathons and never taking the time to really work on your higher end speed. So I would say limit your marathons to twice a year, and after you've recovered for 3 or 4 weeks, do a 5K cycle for 6 to 8 weeks. Really work on getting faster at a shorter distance. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable. The mental side of it is also a really big factor because a lot of people, especially when we're thinking about aging, we're like, oh, I don't want to get hurt, or oh, I have this Achilles injury. And they limit themselves even when they're perfectly healthy because they are like, oh, I'm just nervous about getting hurt. I don't want to go too fast, or this is painful. I don't like this. I don't want to push, So there's lots of mental stuff going on too with getting faster, but I would say overall, consistency and a progressive plan with a set goal is going to give you the best bang for your buck.
That sounds like a lot of the things I've kind of seen in terms of like when I look at training plans, but I don't put together the training plan, so I don't really know why they're like that, but that makes a lot of
Hmm.
sense. And then the other thing that's sometimes incorporated in there, which I think is sometimes hard to do for runners because we're running so much, is strength training. How
Yep.
important is that in terms of getting faster, getting stronger? Obviously, getting stronger, strength training probably linked, but yeah, how important is it?
It's essential. It is absolutely essential, and not just for your running performance. It's essential for you as a human being in your longevity to do strength training because with training, yes, we are getting stronger, but if you're doing a runner specific strength training, what you're also doing is you're working on your strength on one foot. So your balance is super important with running, and you're working with developing your power. So obviously, when you take a running stride, you're pushing off, and that takes an incredible amount of force. And if you just run all the time, sure, you'll get a little bit better. But if you do specific exercises in the gym, you're going to be able to propel yourself off the ground a lot better. And the other thing that strength training does, it helps you balance each side a little bit better. We're all unbalanced. Nobody's perfectly equal on both sides. Strength training can help mitigate that, and that helps prevent injuries. So if you are strength training, does it mean you're not going to get an injury? Absolutely not. It doesn't fix everything, but when you're a stronger runner, you're going to be less fatigued as you run, so you can run faster longer, which will make you a better runner. And you're going to be more resilient. You're going to be more resilient towards falls. So that's a big thing as we age. And honestly, if you're like me, a kind of clumsy runner, if you work on your strength and you work on your balance, if you fall, it's going to be less, damaging to you. And of course, as we age, that is one of the risk factors is once we get to a certain age, our balance goes, our strength goes. And so a fall and we break our hip, that's going to be devastating. So it's strength training is, and I hate saying this as a running coach, strength training is more important than running. Ooh, I said it.
I no, I see that kind of stuff where people on social media will say, I started running less and doing more strength training and I got faster. And I always think to myself, I don't know how that's possible, but you're saying it is. So
Yes,
and I
yes.
think I think people are short on time too. So say you only have maybe 4 days a week to work out. Is it important to make one of those four workouts strength training?
I would not do it that way. I would
Okay.
do 10 minutes every day at the end of your run for strength training. So I would break it up. So instead of running that extra mile, take that 10, 12 minutes and do some strength training. That's all that it takes. Again, it's stimulating your metabolism 4 days instead of one day. So, you might do a leg day one day, you might do core the next day. I mean, every other day. And you might do something more balance oriented. So, breaking it up into between 2 and 4 days a week, I think is better than doing it once a week. I don't think there's enough stimulation that you would do once a week. You'd also be really tired if you do like an hour or two of strength training once a week. You're going to be sore and you won't be able to run as well. So it's far better just to break it up. I like giving my athletes 10 to 20 minutes is all I have them do. Occasionally 30 minutes, but you also want to do it after a run if you can fit it in, because we want to make our hard days hard. So, and that allows us to have our easy days or our off days truly restorative. You actually recover. You can do some light yoga or do some light walking, some swimming, something like that. But your running days, especially your speed days, you want to follow up with a strength session. And like I said, 10, 15 minutes so that when you are tired from running, you're doing your strength training. You're not going to be great at strength training when you're tired from running, but that's okay. Your goal is running. So you're going to be able to recover from both of those sessions the next day instead of spreading it out. So a lot of people, the timing of their workouts has a massive impact on their performance. They run too fast on their easy runs. Then the next day they do strength training because that's their strength training day. And then the third day they're trying to do some kind of speed work and they're exhausted. So they can
Hmm.
never hit their true potential because of the way they have it scheduled. It has nothing to do with their fitness. It has all to do with their plan and their schedule.
You're making me rethink everything I'm doing. That's a really, because I would think, yeah, do one workout a week, primarily strength training, but it does make sense to add it onto the running and to do shorter bursts. And I,
Mm-hmm.
I also see a lot of info about lifting heavy. Does it need to
Mm-hmm.
be like super heavy for it to have an impact when it comes to strength training?
Heavy is relative. So, runners are not going to be able to lift heavy in a lifting sense. They're not going to be able to lift as much as lifters, right? Because we're focused on running. So, heavy is heavy for you. And so, a typical definition of a heavy lift is something that you can only do maybe 6 to 8 times, maybe only 2 to 3 sets. So, that is going to be something heavy for you, but we're not talking about one rep max or, trying to reach absolute failure. We're talking about something that is challenging but doable. But again, if you're scheduling your strength training after your run, you're going to be tired. So there's no way you're going to reach these huge max numbers. So, runners are stereotypically not super strong in the gym. So heavy is going to be kind of light. But I think what the message lift heavy is not that you're lifting, bench pressing 200 pounds. It's that you're not doing an endurance workout for your strength training. So a lot of people will pick up some light dumbbells and they'll do sets of 12, 15, 20, and it turns into a cardio workout. So you're not really building strength. You're honestly burning calories, which is what you just did on your run. So you're not actually building muscles. You're doing another sort of catabolic workout. So what you want to do is an anabolic workout. You want to grow your muscles. So you do that by eating enough food and eating enough protein and lifting heavy things.
That's yeah. Everything you're saying is making me think about everything I'm doing and being like, I should be doing this differently because I do. Yeah, well, I'm going to start doing that. Yeah. Anyway, there's so much to learn here, but
Let me
you,
help you, Natalie. I can
I
help you.
know, I know, and you also mentioned something about being a clumsy runner, so I wanted to touch back on that. Have you had
Yeah.
any injuries that you've had to deal with?
I mean, the only injuries have been falls. They haven't been like overuse injuries. So just, I was running the Chicago Marathon and I was doing like a run the 2 days earlier and I was just looking around, do, and just fell over on the sidewalk, just a little scrape. No big deal. So that's happened, a couple turned ankles, but no, I've been lucky enough to have no real running injuries. And I mean in the sense of an overuse injury or some kind of running injury. It's been just being clumsy.
Yeah, I mean, but it sounds like you're training properly that you're not going to get
Mhm.
those overuse injuries. I actually had the same exact thing. I sprained my ankle from tripping, and that was maybe 5 years ago. And honestly,
Mhm.
that still acts up sometimes more so than anything else that's ever happened. But I
Mhm.
went to PT for that to obviously rehab, and that was the physical therapist shed so much light on running and just how to stay in shape for running. She was the one who started telling me that it's a 1 foot sport, and I never thought about it
Yes.
that way, kind of like you said before. And that was when
Mhm.
I actually started incorporating more strength training after going to physical therapy because she was the one
Good.
who told me about how important it is, and then obviously mobility and all of that. So I
Mhm.
always talk about physical therapy as a great thing, although usually it comes from an injury, but it's really so important to learn all of those skills.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So have you had any person come to you and said, "I'm too old to start running," what would you say to them?
I would say you're right. If you think that you're too old for it, you are. If you think you're not too old for it, you're not. I think really it's all about perspective. Anybody can run, but you really have to want to do it. Like your friend who said, let's run this. I don't really want to. I think there's plenty of ways to get in shape. There's plenty of ways to enjoy life. There's plenty of ways to stay healthy. If you don't want to run or you feel like it's not for you, don't do it. Find something you do enjoy. But for other people who say, I'm too old to run, but they want to run, I would say, well, let's break that down. Let's start small. Let's, just run to the next mailbox. Let's see where you're at before you say you're too old. Because, you know, you can find examples. There are people, they have senior games where people who are 95 years old and they are running, crazy times. And so nobody's too old, but they might have limiting beliefs.
So for you, in terms of running, you told me that you're kind of retired.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about your journey?
Yes. So my journey to get a sub 3 marathon was very intense, and I don't regret a minute of it. I was running, at my highest peak, I was running 90 miles a week. It was definitely a part-time job, sort of full-time job. It was something that I really dedicated myself to, and it's something I'm super, super proud of. So I'll tell anybody in the world, yep, I'm a sub 3 marathoner, I have no shame. I am very, very proud of what I achieved. But I also was at the point where if I wanted to go further, I would have to train so much harder just to shave off a couple minutes. And so I really gave up a lot, gave up Saturday mornings with my kids, I gave up a lot of other things in my life for this one passion. And it was something like, for me, it was like I climbed Mount Everest and I did it. I don't feel like I need to do it twice. You know what I mean? I got the big goal that I wanted. And for me, after that, there wasn't a natural next step that was worth it to me. So I did back off of racing and I kept running still for a long time. And then I got, my half marathon PR, which I'm happy about. But like after that, racing itself, I always found racing to be very stressful. I didn't love the race environment. I loved the training. I loved geeking out of the philosophy. The actual races themselves, I didn't find joy in. The only time I really found joy, I mean, besides the finish line, right, is pacing. Like I really loved pacing other people. So that is something that I have loved doing. But running for myself to try to get some magic number, that was always, it was rewarding, but it was stressful at the same time. And so I wanted to kind of still stay fit and stay healthy, but running for times and training for marathons over and over again, it kind of lost its luster for me. It wasn't something that I felt like I needed to do. I didn't need to, there was nothing to prove. I was at the top of my fitness, could I have gotten 1 or 2 minutes faster? Maybe, but it was not that big prize anymore. So I didn't really want to give up 15 hours a week for this sport anymore, but I still wanted to stay in shape. And so I got more into strength training and still kept running. And so I was doing a little of both. And now I've gotten to the point where I've found a gym and a community that I really, really love. And it's more based on strength and conditioning. So we do a little running, but I'm not running long distances anymore. And I'm enjoying being a newbie again. I'm enjoying growing again. I'm enjoying that I have so much potential right now. So, I like, for example, like we were doing lifts the other day, and I put the amount of pounds that I lifted into one of those calculators to see on like how good is this? I don't even know if I'm good at this. And I was at the 53rd percentile. So for my age and my weight and all of that. So I am very, very average at strength training, but it also means that I have that much more to go. If you put of course, if my ego needed to see where I was with running. In running, I'm like 99th percentile, but in lifting, I'm at 50 percentile. So that could be discouraging, but I prefer to look at it the opposite way. I love improving. I love learning. And I felt like with the marathon, I was like pretty close to like what's next? What's next? You know what I mean? And so I have switched into a more strength based program, and I like growing muscles. I look different. My body looks different now that I'm not a runner, and I actually really like having arm muscles. I like being able to lift heavy things. So that's really why I made the shift. Will I ever run a marathon again? Well, my daughter's into running, so maybe if she starts running marathons, she might convince me in a few years to run one with her. We'll see. We'll see. But for now, I'm doing something that I enjoy, and I'm being a learner again, which is fun.
Yeah, I can absolutely see that. That I see these things. I keep referencing social media, but I see these things on social media where I see people running 6-minute miles and they're aiming for some sort of pace and they don't make it and then they're distraught. And I'm thinking to
Yes.
myself, that's so fast. Like I would be so happy with that. But you get in this cycle of this is what I'm
Yes.
doing. And unless you're going for like Olympic trials or something, yeah,
Right.
what's why? Why do I need to put this pressure on myself? And I've also talked to many runners who feel the same way as you do about race day. There's just so much anxiety. You don't sleep the
Yep.
night before, blah, blah. Whereas I think it's all just fun. And probably because I've never really set like huge goals, I'm like, this is super fun. I get to like go there and listen to the music and whatever.
Yeah. Well, and a lot
But
of people do that. They'll put a race on the calendar, and that helps them stay motivated,
yeah.
and it helps them be like, okay, I need to get in this kind of shape by this date. And, they're not necessarily looking for their PR or best performance, but having a race on the calendar is really helpful motivationally. And so I get that. A lot of my clients are like that. But I mean, for me personally, I don't need that. I don't
Yeah.
need something. I don't need some race on the future. I'm a box checker. I am up at 5:45 every day. I go to the gym at 7 o'clock every day. I come home and have breakfast at 8 o'clock. I like a routine. And so I don't necessarily need that carrot, that thing on the calendar. But lots of people do, and lots of people love racing. It's a big party. They're with their friends. They get to be a part of this club, that runs races. And I get that, but that was never my motivation.
Yeah, I totally hear that. Well, now you're
Hmm.
helping so many runners. Even this podcast
Yes.
alone, all the things that you shared with me and sharing with this audience, I feel like are things that, not everyone has access to a run coach, and this is
Right.
so valuable for them. So I really appreciate you sharing this and also just sharing how you went through all of it and people can learn
Yeah.
from that. So I know that people are going to want to find you and follow you. So where can they do that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the first place is my podcast is the Planted Runner podcast. And I do some interviews, but I do mostly solo episodes where I just talk like I'm talking now about running topics that are going to be super helpful. But I'm the Planted Runner everywhere. So plantedrunner.com. You can check me out on Instagram. Or of course, you can sign up and get coached. I have a running team. I call it the PR team. And it is a group of runners that we have our own little corner of the internet where we share our runs and we ask questions, and you have access to me, and we share the ups and downs. We talk about shoes, we talk about gels. So if you are one of those people who is just a runner who runs all by yourself and you don't have a running buddy to talk to, and your spouse is sick of hearing about running, come to us and we will we will we will embrace you. So I, while I don't race myself, I feel like I get to race with all of my athletes, so I get to run all of the marathons without the hard work. I still feel like I'm a part of a community, and it's fantastic. So that's where you can find me. Oh, and I do have a freebie if anybody's interested. I have a free fueling guide that helps teach you what to eat before, during, and after your run. And you can get it at theplantedrunner.com/join, JOIN. And yeah, it's a free download.
That sounds so fun. And then do people have to be plant-based to work with
No,
you? Okay.
no, not at all. I think people are attracted to me who are more plant-based or plant curious, but I'm basically, I preach to the choir. I don't try to convert anybody. If however you eat is great, as long as you are happy and healthy. I'm not trying to change anybody's mind about anything, but if you are plant-based and you have specific questions, I definitely can help.
Same. I always say the same. I'm here to help if you want to eat more plants, but you do
Yeah,
you. Well,
absolutely.
thank you again, Claire. This was so much fun.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.